All right, everybody, let's welcome Tim from Oregon. He's a 15-year targeted individual dealing with remote neuromonitoring. How's it going, Tim?
Hi, Kevin. I've been really impressed with your documentation and testimony, identified with a lot of the same gang stalker techniques. It's a pleasure to do an interview with you. I'm 3 years an aware targeted individual, 15 years tortured, and for like 12 of it, like probably too many TI. I thought it was only mental illness, and it's much worse.
Right, right. Well, I've been through the same thing. The difference is I knew right from the beginning when this started happening that I knew who was doing it and what was going on, kind of. So, because I knew the people, and they're braggers. Gang stalkers are braggers. They like to brag about what's going on. And but just like you, for a long time, I didn't have a clue that this was going on. Just broadcast stuff was going on and people were connecting to me, and I had no idea about it until they actually started talking to me with artificial telepathy and actually gang stalking me. That's when I became aware that something was going on.
Your intel and getting the perp side and that perspective has been invaluable. There's another man who was hired into the Blackwater end of what they're doing in Seattle. And I went through Bellingham, Washington, and Seattle, and a couple of even like the homeless shelters and Christian shelters. And I was like in Bellingham, Washington, I was in a room full of men who were homeless like I was, and we were sharing the same synthetic telepathy. And it was one of the most like unnatural, unnerving experiences. I've had a lot of really messed up stuff happen to me, but this guy who got perp end of stuff out of Blackwater, the guys that get paid to do the dirty work for the military and what they were doing in Seattle, he did a documentation on Spreaker, contractor industry professional tells all or something like that. And he took their data on their numbers on how many Americans out of like 327 million of us in 2019. There's an estimated 1.5 million of us, Kevin. It's the same plot to enslave.
You know, yeah, I would say the number's a lot higher than that in reality, because the same thing like we went through, a lot of people have this going on and they're on neuromonitoring remotely by somebody else and they have no idea. They don't even believe in this kind of technology, and they're experiencing broadcast and feeling some type of way all the time when maybe it's not even the way they're feeling.
I really worry about the people getting lost in the deception. Like early on in some of your videos, you talked about how getting past it is magical, and being able to really definitively explain, like, they're able to read my thoughts as I'm having them. And I identified with so much of your testimony, the perp end stuff, I had no data. I've been relying on the guys like you that got in on that end, or were perpetrators and jumped ship. This guy out of Seattle became a TI, and they got in his fucking head, and he paid the price. But that's where I got those numbers. They thrive on keeping us isolated, tactics to keep TIs not cooperating or working together. I've been so impressed with your effort to pass the censorship. Like, I've never seen so many shares on a single post or a series of posts that I've seen on yours. Since these disclosures are making a lot of sense to a lot of other TIs. It's really helping.
I appreciate that. And I think the reason is because all of these other people, they're experiencing the same things. And prior to hearing exactly how this is all working, they were very confused, just like I used to be when this first started. It was very magical, and they pretend to be magicians and sorcerers and spirits, and they sold their souls, and they can pretend to be the government and all kinds of things. But this technology is leaked out there intentionally, I believe, for the inevitable to happen, which is everybody putting everybody on neuromonitoring, and we're all just on mind control together.
It's quite a hell. Some of the verbiage that was actually channeled information, I have to credit. Oh, it's connecting video. Okay. some of the verbiage that was channeled through me about what this represents, like what they're doing in the human form and coming in with this tech and satellites and remote monitoring. It's not only crimes against humanity. It's not only war crime. It's actually at a new, more defined level. It's crimes against creation, particularly in each one of us that have to endure other people's thoughts through synthetic telepathy. And others, I'm not using this word lightly. They shouldn't be in our minds and bodies at all. It's Satanism.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I have a theory, and there's nothing to really. I don't have anything to back up this theory, but I believe that the way we evolve is through learning and experience, and just like any creature on this planet. The lifestyle that they live and the habitat that they live in affects how they evolve as a species. And us dealing with this, with being connected on mind control to other people and all of this happening in this broadcast, I believe that it can have an evolutionary effect in the long term.
I've heard some of that speculation. I feel like with the synthetic telepathy I've been hooked up with, I mean, I've devolved, having to endure so much of these. They're called, in the terms for warfare, they're called satanic repeaters and suggesters. Like when your perps were using the same repeated statement over and over, I think I sent you a message on Facebook. I detail some of the terms for their warfare, for their Satanism, but what she was doing to you was called a satanic repeater.
Right. Well, what's happening a lot of times, you have one particular gang stalker, and I don't know where they get this stuff from, but they love to say their same little phrases, and it seems like they get stuck on one thing, but several of them will get on mind control together. So it's like it's almost like if you have 3 or 4 people connected on mind control, and then one of them has a desire to kind of lead the way, then you're really dealing with 3 or 4 of that person, because the rest of them are just on mind control. And what they do, they like to be mind controlled. So they're on these mind control headsets, and they're allowing somebody else to mind control their broadcast, and so they can just be sitting there without much effort and kind of spectating at their own life of what's going on. So they want to be mind controlled, and that's what they're addicted to, is mind control. And that's what the people who leaked this technology, they knew that this would happen, and now the inevitable is happening. And these gang stalkers are really just tools, and they're just addicts that are addicted to this mind control, and they're doing this. And the people who put this technology out there, they knew that this would happen.
So some things that I've been so poor, I've been giving out some of this advice, I haven't been able to afford the materials myself, or all of them. For the electromagnetic form rape, for excess for waste for men, and toys for reproduction for women, the digital dark age chastity belt, you can use like medical tape and N52 level magnets around your low chakra area where they're abusing people. And that can help mitigate the rape. I haven't been able to purchase it, but there's medical lead. It's got really high atomic density, but there's medical caps. You get $50, and then like X-ray lead clothing that's been used by the medical community that may cut your body off from getting a signal. I have an aunt who's a targeted individual, unfortunately, in Southern California, and she was able to afford it. I told her about the lead cap. You can get them for $50, right. And she's getting more than placebo relief from it. It's helping her stay not as targeted.
Well, that makes more sense to me than some of the other things that I've heard about, because lead is what they use. If you have like an X-ray room at a medical facility, the walls are lined with lead, and that's how they contain those waves. So the only thing is that with the broadcast, the broadcast can be on you. So I don't know if it maybe could just go right under the lead, possibly. So but it's definitely something to look into and experiment with, because lead is what they use to block those type of waves.
I was impressed with what you found out about like laser pointers and getting EMF broadcasts off your body or like out of your room. There was I was in Redmond, Oregon for a while, and I was experimenting with a Faraday cage, and I guess like there was some chat with my perps. By the time I slept in the Faraday cage, which is a grounded metal structure around a tent, that I made for less than $100. For the duration, after a couple of hours, they lost my signal with some of the talk. The perpetrators that were constantly looking for my unique brain signature or whatever it really is for that to dial into my personhood. It's crimes against creation, man. It's worse than crimes, war crimes. It's worse than crimes against humanity. It's been 15 years of this. I mean, I've accurately described it as lake of fire, body and mind. My whole chakra system has been tortured like a toothpick for Satanism. I talked to this other guy who happens to be in the neighborhood, and he's also a victim of this nano thieving, like where they're taking your content, or let's say you're at your job and they're you're doing something for your job, and they're using what you're talking about in your brain for industrial espionage and all this other just really sinister shit. And you've done like a really exceptional, I can't emphasize this enough. Some people don't like compliments, and I respect that, but you've really done a really good job uncovering a lot of this shit for 1.5, maybe 2 million people in the U.S. alone, dude.
Well, I hope to do a lot more. I'm in a unique position to know a lot of the people that are doing this kind of thing. And in the beginning, they were broadcasting a lot of the holograms, and all of the things that they've done. It's allowed me to put it all together and how everything works. And it's kind of a funny story. You might have heard how I accidentally discovered how to record artificial telepathy in the beginning, and I was calling the girl that has me on remote neuromonitoring. She was a girl that I was dating, and I was calling her, and she wouldn't answer, but I kept getting these 20-second recordings and I could hear her and some other people, and I was thinking that it was because I was calling her phone and it was hearing what was happening, so I kept calling and calling, probably looking like a stalker myself. But with the call record app, the EMF broadcast is close enough to the cellular signal that I was able to intercept it as interference. And what I learned in time was that it didn't matter who I called, and if I called my voicemail even, it would happen. So I started doing all of these recordings, and I would have 2 phones and call myself, and the broadcast coming to me would be intercepted. And it's hit or miss. Sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's not so good, but if you do it all the time, you can get a lot of good recordings. And that's how I ended up with like 15,000 tracks on SoundCloud of artificial telepathy. So it was just interesting that I was able to discover that by accident. And then over time, with them bragging and continuing to do things, even though I started to learn how everything worked, it's really, they just tell on themselves. They're giving away too many secrets.
I'm thankful for your research. What you were talking about with reflective surfaces and catching the broadcast that way totally happened to me. I didn't intend for it, but I was doing I was on another computer, an Apple computer, and there's TVs in the local town that are talking directly to me, man. Like that Satanic Project Mockingbird, when the television starts talking to you, it's another form of their torture and Satanism. But anyways, your advice about reflective surfaces. I'm doing a video on YouTube, and I've got sunglasses on, and I'm looking through the camera. I watched the video a second time after I did it, and I could see reflecting in the surface of my sunglasses an avatar staring back at me like an EMF perp or AI conscious. It wasn't the real person. It was like an EMF perp staring back at me through the surface of the computer that I normally couldn't see unless I used a reflective surface like you talked about. I was like, holy shit, you're totally right.
I've had a lot of people that are starting to tell me, I can see them, and there's different type of broadcasts. I mean, the hologram broadcast, they're physically where you are. If you see them, they're actually where you are. But a lot of times it's difficult to see them without the right circumstances. But in reflections, for whatever reason, it refracts the light, right? And you can see the broadcast. But another thing is in reflective surfaces, sometimes if they have, if they're broadcasting to a reflective surface, to watch you off of that, because that gives them a better quality of a view, the better the surface is. If they're doing that and the broadcast is turned up high enough, you can see them where they are in that reflective surface. So it's like, you know, I'm looking at a laptop one day and it's not even turned on, and I can see a couple of gang stalkers, and they're looking at me and I'm looking at them, and it's almost like we're on a video chat. And I was like, wow, this technology really is amazing.
Wow. I want to cut this off before we get too long. We could do these definitely regularly. I'm continuing to do more research for the AI component, and it seems so human, but I have to conclude over my 15 years, like, AI has been involved in this, like, in my life. I would recommend the Solaris Blue Raven interview on Project Camelot. She was taken like I was in 2004, identifies as an MK Ultra super soldier. There may be like 137 CIA mind control projects, separate mind control projects this is all feeding into, and it's getting released to the public, and other people are taking advantage of other citizens. It's a mess. But yeah, check out Solaris Blue Raven, some speculation on the AI component. They think whole people in front of me, dude, where unless they acknowledged that they were an EMF perp, like, I wouldn't have known. Like, the last woman I slept with, like, she may have been an EMF perp for all I really know. I think she's definitely a gang stalker. Yeah.
Hey, I've got the same problem, man. I keep messing with these gang stalker girls, man, and it really, it messed up my life pretty good for a while there. But you know, everything happens for a reason, man.
Yeah, I think us connecting has been really fortunate. It's really not just your last name. This is really the Christian thing to do. This is the beast system. And it's not designed for justice. It's designed for things like faking surveillance, you know, for crimes people didn't commit and other worse than war crimes. So,
I mean,
thanks again. Go ahead.
One more thing. Can you imagine, think about all of the unsolved cases and all of the crimes that go unsolved, and the things that happen that would never happen if they were using this technology correctly.
Wow, I hadn't gotten into that at all. I've been such a torture object of the beast system nationally and internationally. Like, until like you started talking about like their sex orgies, or where they use this in any way, shape, or form for something other than like outright torture. Like, that was totally news to me. So I don't really know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we are running out of time. You have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, and I'll do more video there, and I'll keep in touch, and like I'll corroborate on research and shit. Like some of my focus later now. I'm 15 years into this. Like I'm planning my like, how do I exit the fucking solar system after this piece of shit? I'm trying not to get reincarnated in a place where they're going to do this to the human condition. I would be more than happy to share that info and keep in touch. Connected with the dude from Georgia on some real humanitarian issues, like people in the Northwest. If you see this, like, Kevin's a good representation to people in the South, like really good looking out for other people kind of stuff.
So go ahead and tell everybody what's your YouTube channel so they can check you out.
Oh yeah, okay. So my handle online is Tim. TIMD is in Daryl, Young, YOUNG, BS is in Bachelor of Science, MPA is in Masters of Public Administration 5. So if you type into any internet search browser, Tim D. Young, BS, MPA 5, you'll see I have a web page now that's got 1,200 or something entries, like an Instagram that's censored. Probably not as yours is much more censored. A Twitter account, and then they can find my Facebook from there too.
Okay. Cool. So everybody, this is Tim from Oregon. And,
hey, T.I., I love you. I hope you guys suffer less.
And I'm Kevin Christian, and I hope you guys enjoyed the interview.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah.